Welcome back to the Cream City Club podcast. You are listening to episode number 42. I am Spencer Michaelis, and I'm here once again with Gunnar Amelunk. Gunnar, how are you doing this late Monday evening?
Doing well. Finally got outside and golfed a little bit, so that's how you know I'm doing just fantastic mentally. Especially after that rough Buck season, the way it ended, I needed to get a nice debriefing, like I said, mentally. So, I know your coaching season just wrapped up, Spencer, so it's a little bit similar situation for you, but how you feeling now that you got a little bit more free time?
Yeah, I can breathe a little bit now. I finally have a little bit of time to breathe and to do something other than baseball, but I do love baseball, so I'm not going to complain too much about it. It's just it was a long season for sure. So I'm not too upset that it's over now. I'm looking forward to next year already though. Um yeah, but we're gonna talk about a baseball team that had a more successful season than the team I coached did. And so far, I should say, and that is the Milwaukee Brewers. So if you aren't listening and you haven't yet subscribed, please take a moment to do so on whatever platform you're on. Follow us on Twitter at the Cream City Pod to stay up to date on these episode releases. And as you may have guessed, today is going to be a Brewers focused episode, our first one in a while, because we focused on the Bucks for a little bit during that Pacers series. So Gunnar, what do we got coming up?
We'll start off with our final thoughts on last week's drama. I know it's really been beat to a dead horse probably amongst Brewers Twitter, podcasts, all around. Basically, I know Spencer's probably touched on it in a few podcasts already, but just our final thoughts on those ordeals of all last week's drama. Then we're gonna have injury and roster updates throughout. Obviously, we're gonna be rewinding back to the beginning of the Cubs series, so we've had a couple different moves go on since then. Speaking of that Cubs series, we'll be recapping that, like I said. And then we just are starting to record after this game one of the Royals game. So we're going to recap that one as best we can, as well as just a little bit of maybe a preview of the rest of the series. And then just any unanswered questions or roster specific discussions that we've got that maybe we just want to answer at the end of this podcast. We've got a couple of dying questions we've got to answer ourselves. So. But as I said to start it out with, before the Cubs series, when we headed to Chicago over the weekend, the Brewers had a very eventful week of baseball. We've had everything from umpire controversies to missed calls, not missed calls, and it got capped off, I would say, in a brawl fashion, um, quite literally. But we had over the weekend, Matt Arnold did comment on the whole situation just to sort of wrap it up and said, end quote with he had like a minute long quote on MLB Network's radio, but the biggest quote that got the headlines was our team needs to play with an edge, and I certainly appreciate that. So I think just like I said to wrap up last week, it seems like this Brewers team does have a little bit more of like Matt Arnold said, an edge to them. Um, I guess Spencer, just to sort of wrap it up, do you enjoy the style of play, whatever this is, whatever you want to define that as, that that's an edge to this team, if that's whatever that is for you, how they play baseball this year. Do you enjoy watching that style of baseball, even if it comes with maybe some consequences, some suspension, some chippiness? Are you willing to make that maybe trade if you're getting successful baseball out of it?
If you're getting successful baseball out of it, sure. I don't love, so I like a team with an edge and a team that plays hard all the time and a team that's fiery. I would say something like what Abner Uribe did is a line that doesn't need to be crossed. There's no reason for him to start a brawl with Jose Siri in that spot. I don't know that I fully believe, or I don't know which way I lean completely on the Freddie purposely hitting Siri or not. Honestly, I go back and forth. I can see how some people think he did, and I also, having followed Freddie for as long as I have now, it would be pretty out of character for him to go after somebody in that type of spot, which he pointed out after the game even. But I like an edge. I like fiery competitors. I don't like. I'm. I've said it before. I'll say it again till the day I die. Do not hit people on purpose. There is no point. There's no point. You look bad. It only hurts your team. There's literally no positive to doing it. Um, it's just if Freddie did do that, and if he did, ejecting him is well within the right of the umpire if they are 100% sure that he hit him on purpose there. That was a selfish move. He had a chance to save the bullpen. He had a chance to go deep into a game, to go 8 innings, possibly. Like he was on pace to do that, and he decided to be selfish if that's what he was doing. I I want the team to be in that mindset of like, yeah, we're playing with a chip on our shoulder. Teams don't believe in us. Nobody believed in us before the season. Like we were kind of underdogs going into the year. That's a good edge to play with where it's like, all right, I'm gonna run everything out. I'm going to dive after everything. We're going to be scrappy. We're going to steal bases. We're going to take extra bases. We're going to prevent runs that other teams might not just by playing harder in the outfield. Like, whatever. All that stuff is fantastic. It's great. And the Brewers do have a decent amount of that this year. I've seen a lot of good stuff like that. But there's also still a line, and there's a way that, in terms of when people say the right way to play, I hate that connotation in general because it's always about not bat flipping or not doing that. Like, no, you bat flip. I don't care if you do that stuff. I think the right way to play, though, is to not purposely attack other players on the other team, meaning either with a pitch or with a swing of a open hand like Abner Uribe did. There's still a level of you have to be you have to be able to control your emotions even if you're playing with an edge, and you have to be able to handle some adversity even if you're playing with an edge, and even if you are a fiery competitor. And I don't think the whole team has that issue, but I do think Abner absolutely has that issue right now. And I'm not super worried about Freddie having anything moving forward, any issues with that type of stuff. He's really, like I said, even if this was a purposeful hit by pitch, he has never had any issue with anything like that at any point in his entire baseball career. So if it's a one-off, whatever, I'll get over it. It was a mistake if that was the case. So Abner is the one that really stands out as somebody that he's got to figure it out, because that's not the correct way to play baseball. It's not the right way to handle stuff. It's not the right way to handle emotions. So, in general, I agree with Arnold. The team needs an edge, and I also appreciate watching them play the way they've played early on this year. But that Rays series felt like a boiling point of not the right way to handle a lot of stuff. So I kind of answered the question, but I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think first with the Freddie thing, just because I haven't had a chance, I guess, to really on video and on audio make my stance known. But I didn't think he hit him on purpose until I saw funny enough, the John Boy media, whatever the voiceover thing they always do, the meme thing. Because that angle they showed him Freddie staring him down after the home run, and I'm like, well, maybe he did take offense to it. And he waited for the perfect time, I guess, to hit him right in the butt cheek, whatever it was, the back. If you're gonna get hit by a pitch, that's the best place to get hit. And Siri, like you might have mentioned too, he didn't really take offense to it either. So it just was very weird overall, how that ended up playing out because again, the umpire made it a situation when it wasn't. But the Abner part of it, he clearly, like you said, has a problem, and he's the one who has to figure it out. Another thing I heard or saw somewhere over this weekend was I did not know that Abner also had a AAA suspension going on too. So he came back from AAA and had to serve that one. And now when he comes back up to the majors, whenever that is, he's going to have to serve this one too, whatever it was, 6 games. So if that doesn't say that he has a problem that he needs to maybe figure out, I don't know what else does. And if he can't learn that lesson at this point, I don't know. He's going to have to figure that part out of it. And it's a good we've talked about it a bunch, but he's going to need that chippiness and that edge that we're talking about, but he's got to be able to combine it with just a better mentality maybe. But as far as the team, I guess in general, I just I think maybe the mentality is different, but kind of like you said, I just like this brand of baseball more. It's just feels like they're playing really hard in general, like they're stealing bases this year. And I don't think it. We've had a couple instances. Obviously, it started with the Mets series and stuff like that, where we've had maybe more of like talking a little bit more, but and I think Pat Murphy does not shy away from that at all. He's probably the one. I don't think he's hyping guys up to do that stuff, but he's probably not the one talking it down very much. I think he wants us to embrace that side of it. And like you said, I think this team, maybe we feel underrated, maybe we feel a little disrespected in some aspects because we're a small market, Milwaukee, whatever it is. But we're not shying away from the fact that we're like, no, we want to earn everything that we get. And you're not going to come here and disrespect us, whatever that is. But I just like the way that we're playing. brand of baseball style, like you said, and I just want to keep that part of it up. I don't want to see fights all the time. I don't want to see, um, I guess, yeah, brawls in general. I don't want to see, but I want to see the fiery competitiveness. Um, I remember the Orioles series. That might have been our last Brewers episode. Honestly, we haven't done it in a while, but um, when Willie was getting chippy like that, then turned into a brawl. That was just straight up competitiveness, and that's what I like to see. But um, yeah, I mean, that could really much wrap up our thoughts too in that week. But we had a lot of news, and before this Cubs series in Chicago, um, we haven't had a chance to talk about Tyler Black being up on the roster. We'll leave that there for now. I'm sure we'll talk about him a lot throughout the podcast and at the end of it. But obviously, I was very excited to see that he got called up during that Rays series. And he was introduced to, I guess, some chippiness baseball once he got called up right away. So, welcome to the show there. Abner, of course, went down to AAA. As we discussed, Joey Weimer, that happened, I think, during that Cubs series. Hurt his knee in the outfield,
Yep.
jammed it up a little bit. I don't think it's anything too serious, but nothing like it needs surgery or anything. But hopefully he's back soon. Not sure I necessarily need him back soon or want him back soon. Probably another different story there. And then obviously with that news, we got Andrew Monasterio called up as well as Jared Koenig from AAA called up. So that would lead us right into game one of the Chicago Cubs series. Our first chance to get a crack at Greg Counsell. Uh, and we won the game, which was nice to see. Really slow game. That was kind of the thing for me. I mean, it felt like a lot of slow offense really throughout all these three games, but we didn't really see it pick up until the fourth for me. And that's when the Cubs threatened a little bit. We had a Joe Ross start, which another great Joe Ross start, which was good to see. I think they had that in the fourth. They threatened a little bit. He got somebody caught looking at a strike three. And really his only mark for me in the whole game was the Christopher Morale home run, I think, to center field, which he did not miss at all. And he's been red hot and was red hot the series. Had like three straight home runs in this series too. But I guess Spencer, since I'll just start there with Joe Ross, how excited are you about Joe Ross? Because I know for me, and I remember this is a conversation that we had earlier in the year. He was probably the one name that we questioned why he's in the starting rotation, maybe, and we thought maybe he should be in the bullpen. But for me, like I said, I think I'm very impressed with him so far. He's been pretty much exactly what you want. I don't think he's necessarily a top three starter, what you would really want, but really for us, he has been because of his reliability so far. But how impressed are you with him so far and what you've seen in this game and maybe just throughout the season so far?
Yeah, it's funny. I feel like at the beginning of the year, I was higher on, I shouldn't say that. I was lower on Ross than a lot of people, including Pat Murphy. Um, didn't see him as a starter, like you said. I really just did not see a path to him being a starter. And after, prior to this Cubs start, he had had some struggles for a little bit here. And
Mhm.
obviously the ERA is ballooned up to like 4 point something, 4.6 something. Um, I, I actually do believe in him a decent amount as a starter now. The slider's so good. The sinker has made some strides. It's a better pitch than it used to be. He's using the four seamer a little bit more now, and he does mix in a curveball type breaking ball at times and a changeup at times. And the changeup is okay also. So I think there's an actual starter's repertoire in it here. I'll be honest, I was not watching this game. I was attending senior day for the team I was coaching, so I didn't have a chance to watch anything but the highlights of his start. So I don't have too many of the intricacies, but I think in general, just his ability to, like you said, he's gone out every single start, which is for the Brewers, just making a start every 5 to 6 days
Yeah,
is a
that's what I
pretty
mean.
pretty big accomplishment
He's just
so far.
reliable.
Um, and for the most part, he's been able to give you 5+ innings. And like, is that great? Is that a perfect starter? No, but outside of two really bad innings, more than anything else, like the Padres game, his last inning just fell apart at the seams. Like he was pitching great in that game until that point. Um, it's been pretty solid, and I think he's capable of being like a sub 4 ERA starter or hovering around there. And that's a really valuable back end of the rotation guy to have, especially if he can continue to stay healthy and continue to go out there every single opportunity and give you a start and give you 5+ innings. Like it's hard to complain about that. all over baseball, there's problems with this type of stuff. He with limited innings and limited pitch counts, and it's not just a Brewers problem. So if you find guys who can go out there and consistently pitch and at least give you chances to stay in games and give you chances to compete, it's pretty hard to complain about that at any point. But um, I mean, the bullpen did a great job in this game again with Peguero, Payamps, and McGill. But I think it was the Cubs bullpen that ended up being the bigger story in this one.
Mhm.
So honestly, I don't pay that much attention to the Cubs, despite the obvious reason to pay attention to the Cubs early in the season. What I do know is that their starting rotation has been absolutely fantastic. I believe it's the second best ERA in baseball so far. Their bullpen has been horrific. And not to cut Counsell much slack because I don't want to, but I will say it's been funny watching Cubs fans complain about every bullpen move, and then when you look at their bullpen, it's like, well, who did you want them to pitch? They all suck. Like they don't have good pitchers down there. Um, I don't know what you want him to do in that spot. Like he throws out Alzolay, who last year was their closer and a very good pitcher, and he just goes out and he kind of gets shelled. I mean, he didn't give up any huge contact or anything, but he certainly was not controlling the running game. I did go back and watch that whole inning, and I mean, the Brewers just ran on them at will in that inning. They stole four bases, four different people stole second base against the Cubs in that inning, which it was, I believe I can't remember the last game it happened where they stole four in an inning, but this was the first time in quite a long time that the Brewers had four different people steal a base in an inning. It was, in the past, you might have got a guy who stole second and third, and then somebody else stole second and third or whatever, but it had been a long time since four different people stole a base in the same inning for the Brewers, and that was really it. They just hit a bunch of singles and kept turning those into doubles by stealing second, and that's kind of what we were talking about earlier. This team has the capability to hit for power, and they're going to hit for more power than they did in the past and last year especially. But they also have the ability and the willingness and the aggressiveness to steal bases at a higher clip than they have in the past, and we saw it in that inning. I mean, you include William Contreras as one of the people stealing a base, and Willie Adames, and Jake Bauers. Like, those are not really guys you're expecting to take bases, but they're capable of it, and they were aggressive, and they got good reads, and they got good jumps, and they took it, and it changed that inning completely to be able to do that. So this felt like one of those scrappy wins that you sometimes need to have where the offense really isn't there, and you just find a way to scratch across three runs, and luckily the pitching does its job, and you get a nice 3-1 league or win. But before we move on to game two, Gunnar, did you have anything else you wanted to touch on in that one?
No, I mean that was all I could really highlight was that eighth inning, like you said, and like you also said, I think we were due for maybe not good luck is the best word, but we did we were due for some good hitting luck. It wasn't like we had a lot of great hits that inning. I know Cheerio started that one out with a normal base hit up the middle, grounder up the middle. Didn't necessarily hit it hard, but like you said, stole a base. Contreras, I thought he was the one I think to knock him in, and it was weird on that play where Swanson cut it off. I don't think they expected Cheerio to score on that, and he
He
cut it
got a
off as if
great read.
yeah, and he cut it off like they're going to third, which I think, and he was gonna probably score anyways, but the fact that Swanson cut it off to go to third base, I noticed. I'm like that probably cost you the run if it was even there going to be a chance of it. But like you said, a great read, and I think he's going to score anyways. And then Willie squeaked another base hit barely through the middle or through the left side, whatever it was, and then Bowers got a nice hit up the middle too. So, yeah, I mean that was pretty much it. And as the series would show, and we're going to go into game two here, that we did not get a lot of hitting luck, and that was pretty much all we could get in that series, which was that one inning really. But um, as we slide into game two, this was because we didn't have Pat Murphy for that game of he was doing his suspension. Um, this was our first game of Pat Murphy versus Craig Counsell. And we lost this battle, unfortunately. And this matchup was started by Tobias Myers, who I'll begin Spencer's opinion here in a second of him. But I like Tobias Myers, honestly. I like how he throws. This was probably not his best showing of all of his showings this season, in my opinion. Um, just really not good location for me, especially that first inning to me was not good at all. And I thought he actually did a pretty decent job of even getting out of there with 2 runs because I could have got really, really ugly really fast. Um, But yeah, I mean, he got three straight walks, I think, in that first inning. Like I said, only allowing two runs, but really his why he's been struggling this season has been the home run ball. Nico Horner hit a home run. And then I think he got into maybe the third inning through this one where Morale hit another home run, I think a two-run homer, but somehow at least got through three innings in this one and four earned runs, but it didn't look pretty at all. Like I said, I like how he throws. I like some of the stuff that I do see from him. Velocity might have been down a little bit. I know I'll be in your opinion on that in a second, but um, he's got a good changeup or something I noticed too in this one. It was just really location wise, it just was not going good for him at all in this one. But you can see the flashes from him is why I get really excited about him. But Spencer, maybe what have you seen? Same thing with Joe Ross. What have you seen with him this season regarding Tobias Myers? I know you like him a lot. And if you saw this game, why wasn't it working in this one for him?
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head. I mean, he just could not command anything. And the first inning was obviously the worst of it. I mean, it was incredible to get out of that inning with only two runs scored. I mean, he could have with the Brewers were looking like they were going to get absolutely destroyed in that game for probably the first 10 minutes of the bottom half of the first, but he was able to get I mean, honestly, he finished that inning pretty well. He got a double play type of ground ball, but it was just hit too slow to turn it. And then he got two strikeouts to end the inning. So it was like, okay, he might have settled in here, but honestly, he just never really found the command, which is interesting because that's really never been the issue for him. Control, command, it, I guess I shouldn't say that. Command has been a bit of an issue at times where he gets too aggressive in the zone, but walking people and missing the zone badly has never really been much of an issue for him. And he just looked lost early on. The homers are always going to be part of his game. I mean, it's gonna happen with the way his pitches work, especially his four seam fastball. His fastball is a good pitch at the top or above the zone, but if he misses down with it, it can get hit. And Horner got to the one early, and like you said, the velo was down, especially early in the first inning. It was like 90, I believe, when he hit the homer. It was like 90 to 92, pretty much that whole rough patch in the first, and then he settled in and it got more into that 93-ish range, which is where he normally sits there and he can get up a little higher. We've seen 96, but I'm a big Tobias Myers fan. I really believe that he's going to be a solid pitcher at this level, and he's got to figure some things out. I mean, he's only 25. I know a lot of people kind of view him as a journeyman, like a guy who's been in the minors for 8 years because he was drafted out of high school, a young high schooler drafted out of high school, and he's bounced around from org to org. But I think he's got good stuff. He's the same age as Robert Gasser and DL Hall. Like we look at those two as prospects. We look at those two as guys who are developing and still have time, and they're gonna have some bumps in the road. Like Tobias Myers should be looked at the same way as those two. I don't think he has the same amount of stuff as they do, or as good of stuff necessarily, I should say, but he has MLB caliber stuff and an MLB starting pitcher repertoire with five pitches that are legitimate that he can use in different counts and fastball, cutter, curveball, slider, changeup. And we've seen different pitches flash on different nights. Like Gunnar said, the changeup was actually pretty good in that Cubs game. In other games, it's been the curveball or the slider as his best secondary. Like you can see all of them showing flashes of being good pitches. And he's been bit by the home run ball. He's had a little bit of bad luck in that regard, in my opinion. I don't think he's pretty much getting every mistake he makes hit out for a homer, and that's not really how it normally works. He's faced some pretty decent lineups. I wouldn't say the Cubs are a great lineup, but that Yankees lineup is obviously very talented. He would have been fine in that Yankees game. He just made one mistake at the end of it to Judge, but he was doing pretty well in that. He seems to come out flat. That's the one thing I've noticed is that first inning is killing him. He's giving up a run or a home run in that first inning like every time he pitches. And the velo seems to be lower when he comes out. I don't really know. It's got to be something where either he has some nerves he's working through in the first inning every game, or his preparation before the game in the bullpen doesn't necessarily put him in the best spot to go out and pitch. But it's weird because the first inning seems to be his problem inning every game, and then he settles in and he's fine. So Maybe it's a situation where the Brewers used to use an opener for Freddie Peralta. Maybe they try that for Myers and go that direction and see if they can get him into a better rhythm doing that. I don't know, but I like Myers. I think the ERA is a little bit overblown for what he's actually done on the mound so far, and I think he's going to figure it out. But I think the other story of this game again is that the Brewers just could not this whole series hit the Cubs starting pitching end. Jameson Taillon went 6 shutout with 7 strikeouts. I mean, he looked really, really good. He was dominating. But then they went to their bullpen, and the Brewers had a very similar script to the game before. Unfortunately, the Brewers' 4 runs that they scored in that 7th inning weren't as big a deal as the one before because Myers had also given up. The Brewers had already given up 5 runs themselves at that point in the game. So, it it was a bunch of good at bats in that inning. It felt like, and especially obviously to start it because Keegan Thompson came in and he had actually been one of their most reliable relievers at that point. He was doing pretty well, and the Brewers just hit after hit after hit, and Selfrey like kind of finished it off with a RBI double to bring them within 1 at the time. And the Brewers have the middle of the order coming up with nobody out. You think you're in a pretty good spot there to tie the game at least. And William Contreras grounded out the third, Tyler Black strikeout, and Willie Adames strikeout, and that was it. And then the Brewers kind of went out, and unfortunately, Thiago Vieira, who's been struggling a little bit, gave up a run. And then Brian Hudson, who has not been struggling at all, goes out there and has a great first inning. And then he's pitching in the bottom of the 8th and leadoff triple. This is where the umpires come back in a little bit. Leadoff triple. He gets, I believe, a ground out to keep the runner at third. And then he strikes out Patrick Wisdom, except nope. Hunter Wendelstedt says that pitch is low. It wasn't. It was a strike. Hunter Wendelstedt sucks and has for a long time. Very bad umpire. And then Patrick Wisdom, of course, lines a fastball into center for another insurance run. And that came back to be pretty big because Hector Neris didn't really have his best stuff early on in the 9th inning. He was struggling a little bit. The Brewers were able to push a run across. And it was a legitimate run. It wasn't one of those runs they gave up because they were up 2. Like, they didn't really have any chance to cut down the run and decided to be safe with it or anything. It was a legitimate way to get 1 run. So pretty good chance that game would have been tied if Wendelstedt didn't blow that call. But the Brewers also did plenty of damage to themselves in that game, including not taking advantage of that nobody out guy on second, tying run on second in that spot. So annoying missed call, yes, but I'm not going to say he blew the game for the Brewers or anything. The Brewers did plenty of damage themselves. But I guess the only play in that game that a lot of people were talking about, and I'm curious your thoughts on this because I have my own on it, and I'll talk about it first. But first and second in the 9th, and there's a bit of a wild pitch with Blake Perkins on second. The ball scoots away. It gets under whoever was catching for the Cubs that day. I don't think it was Amaya. Oh, it might have been Amaya. Sneaks away there, and Perkins is not able to take third, meaning whoever was on first wasn't able to take second either. And then, of course, that's right before William Contreras lines his ball in the right field, which would have potentially scored both of those runs and tied the game. But I think it's one of those things that on TV, it's like, yeah, the ball got away, obviously. Like, why aren't you taking third base on that? You have to think about it through the lens of the base runner there. It's one of those things where you got to think about the angle of the ball and the catcher and all the people in the traffic that it causes for Perkins. So I've been there as a base runner. The ball sneaks past the catcher. You know it got past him, but you don't know if it's 2 feet behind him where he can just step, grab it, and throw to third, and you'll be toast. Or if it rolled like 15 feet, which is what this ball did. In that case, I feel like he makes the correct decision being safe. If he can't find the ball and he's not sure it rolled far enough away, there's a point where it gets far enough away where you know, like, okay, the catcher's sprinting, I'm going to go now. But it wasn't. It was just right in that weird in-between spot, and like, it looks bad on TV. It looks bad when we have all the angles for it, but as a base runner, I have been there before, and I know that it's one of those balls that's just really hard to pick up, and you can't pick it up, and you do not want to be dumb and get thrown out by 20 feet at third base. But Gunnar, you were on base more than me in college, and you were faster, and you were one who was taking advantage of this stuff. So what were your thoughts on that play and Have you been in a spot there where you just can't see the ball because of all the traffic in between it?
Yeah, I mean, being on second base, like you said, that's going to be the worst spot possible to be on when it goes straight behind. Um, I think weirdly though, like you said, I was, I guess, a faster guy, but I always lean to be safer, especially in those situations. Um, Not to look too much ahead, I guess. It's in the game tonight. We saw Cheerio get thrown out at third base. Different situation. He stole the base. Was probably safe, by the way. We'll talk about that later, but um, it's again, a situation where he's probably going to be safe if he read it correctly right away, obviously, but um, you just never know what happens if you don't get that quick read right away, and you didn't see it perfectly right away. You don't realize how fast time goes in that situation where now the second you hesitated, there's no way you're going to go down. I'm sure they taught him that too, and that's what we were even taught in college. If you don't get that read right away, do not risk it and go to the next base, especially in that big of a situation too. So, yeah, it sucks, but like you also said, I don't think that's why we lost the game. We had plenty of opportunities. You didn't have to make it go down to that situation or scenario, but um and Blake Perkins I trust completely on the bases. It's not like another guy where um uh, in a different situation maybe he's a guy who will test it all the time or something, and those guys will probably get a lot more highlights and they're going to have it pay off a lot more if they're a testier guy. But for him, he's a smart base runner. I think a lot of our smarter base runners wouldn't have gone in that situation. Yelich, I mean, pretty much our whole lineup now is a bunch of smart guys. Sal, those types of guys, I don't think they would have tested it in that exact spot either. So, um, I didn't, out of all the things in this game, I definitely did not regret that part of it. You mentioned the guy in second in the eighth inning, middle of the order, nobody out. That's what I kept thinking about after the game. It was like we couldn't have scooted him over. We couldn't have gotten someone to touch the ball after that. Just something to get that run across. I think that's probably why we lost the game is that situation right there, and that's the one, like I said, I was thinking about after the game the most.
Yeah, I agree. We'll wrap up. We're not going to talk as much about game three here. We got Freddie on the bump with his suspension looming. He was appealing. He was able to at least push that appeal long enough to make this start. 5 innings, three earned, five strikeouts, and six walks. So he was kind of all over the place. I mean, he also hit a pit. He also hit somebody, and he had a wild pitch as well. Just a lack of command we haven't really seen from Freddie in a while. So that was it was a little weird to see. Honestly, he hadn't had those problems since he was pretty young. It had been a couple of years since we saw a true, like, just complete lack of command start from Freddie like that one. But once again, the Brewers did not score a run against the starter and Javier Assad. In this one, they did not score any runs at all and ended up losing 5-0. Just a rough game. Probably one of their, I would say overall, just one of the worst games the Brewers have played this year. They haven't had many just bad games. This one was bad. It was a bad game. It happens. It's 162 games. You're going to have some pretty rough ones. This was one of them. Move on from it, I say, but we should talk a little bit about the Cubs starters allowing not one run to the Brewers in this series. So, Gunner, I guess the question is this a matter of Brewers bats slowing down a little bit? Is this a matter of the Cubs just having a really good starting rotation? And I mean, the numbers of the three starters that the Brewers faced would back that up for sure. Is it a little bit of both? Is it just the Brewers struggling against good pitchers? Is that something you worry about? Are there any concerns specifically because of what you saw in this Cubs series, or is it just a 3 game sample and nothing really to worry about?
I think the fans might have shockingly overreacted a little bit. We've seen that a couple of times this season. It's a very long season. Like you said, their starters are good. At least the ones that we saw. I know they've had some injuries too. And after we won the first game, I saw a bunch of Cubs fans making their excuses of how they have injuries, as if we don't have enough injuries in our starting rotation as well. But yeah, I mean they're solid. I do think, like I said, it was a little bit of overreacting, but overall, I saw Pat Murphy make this comment too, just about the series in general, where it is early May. It didn't look pretty for us, at least to end that series, but um, I think the fact that we have such young hitters and young players playing in these bigger games, quote unquote, again, those doesn't mean it's a whole lot to us necessarily, but it is against the Cubs in a packed house. They clearly care that they're in first place or tied for first place now. I don't know what it is now, but they've been standings watching for some reason for a while. So um, we don't necessarily care about it, but I hope the young players did kind of embrace this weekend series, even though, like I said, didn't go necessarily well. But um, if we're going to want to make this a long season, you're going to want to have some sort of adversity to face. And in a good way, in a bad way, it didn't go our way. But I think the fact that we did see some adversity, hopefully a small amount of it, I'm hoping that pays off in the long run. But I think our bats, I'm not overly worried about our bats necessarily, but they were due to dip off a little bit. Especially some of the guys that we've been seeing hitting well. And some of the guys that maybe we've been counting on to see well haven't really, they've fallen off a little bit over time, I guess. The Jackson Cheerios have really fallen off since then, but even though he had a big hit in the series too, but um, we even had bigger hits from like guys like Blake Perkins, which you wouldn't expect, and Bryce Strang hanging in there. But I expect a little regression from time to time, and we're gonna see. We'll talk about him later, but once we get Christian Yelich back, and once we filter out guys like Oliver Dunn who are struggling for that, I think it's just all going to even out. But I'm not concerned at all with um, this last weekend, or I'm not going to overreact at all. It's just what happens over 162 games. But are you worried about our offense? And like I said, we'll have more specific questions with specific players at the end of this. But in general, it was this kind of a wake up call for you that maybe our offense isn't as good as it seemed to start the season?
No, because I knew our offense wasn't as good as it seemed to start the season. It was overperforming by quite a bit. This is a little regression. It also hurts to not have Yelich. I mean, your best bat arguably is not in the middle of the lineup for a while now. That's going to catch up at some point too. So I'm not worried about the offense. I think it'll be just fine. Probably an above average offense for the year, possibly top 10 in baseball. Wouldn't shock me at all. But I guess just to carry on the offensive struggles a little bit here, we can talk about the Royals' first game in this series. So, a couple of updates before we started this series. Kevin Herget was selected from AAA Nashville. Jansen Junk was optioned there. He got a couple appearances up in the big leagues, but back to Nashville for him. Jacob Junis was transferred to the 60-day IL for, I believe he was put on the IL right at the beginning of April, pretty much. So that would put him on, if he's on there for only the minimum 60 days, because it's retroactive to when he first went on, he's still looking at pretty much a month, no matter what, on the IL. So we know there was a pretty scary situation with him and the ball hitting him during BP. So hopefully everything is going okay in that regard. But yeah, Junis will be out for quite a bit longer. So rotation depth continues to be minimal. And Freddie Peralta did start appeal. He dropped his appeal and he has started serving his 5 game suspension as of tonight when we are recording on the 6th. So, game 1 of this Royals series, I was not watching this game. I was doing some exit meetings with my pitchers, so I did not catch any of it, but I did get the lowdown on what happened for the most part. And another Bryce Wilson, I mean, he was fantastic. 6 really strong innings. Um, we saw Gary Sanchez absolutely crush a two-run homer. Pretty cool catch by the fan, almost going into the fountain. Um, but obviously, the big story in this game is the seventh inning for the Brewers on the pitching side of things. So I wasn't watching, but the thing that stood out to me is going to Jared Koenig over Hobie Milner. And I'm actually a pretty big Koenig fan. So I would say I'm not super upset by this move, but I do find it interesting for the simple fact that Hobie came in during the inning. Um, I would have thought you were using one or the other and you decided to go Koenig. It's a little interesting to me that he went Koenig over Hobie and then still used Hobie to kind of clean up the mess that Koenig had created. And I saw some Brewer fans who were like, well, Koenig has a .93 ERA. Like it's fine to go to Koenig there. It's like, yeah, he does, but it's a tiny sample. And like I said, I like Koenig. I was one of the guys who liked the move to put him in the Yankees extra innings game. Like that's the type of situation where it makes some sense, where you still have a chance to win that game, and you can at least trust him to give you a chance in that spot. But this was a high leverage spot with a lead in the seventh, eighth, ninth. I don't know that he's in the spot where with a fully rested bullpen, which is what the Brewers had tonight. It was everyone was available. I'm pretty surprised he went to him in that spot. And you think about back to Sunday, even like he went to Peguero and Hudson out of the bullpen in a loss, in a clear loss. And then today he went to Koenig with the lead. I still maintain the only thing I've really had many issues with Murph is the pen management. And it's I think it's been better lately. This just felt like a weird decision. And then especially to go to Hobie to clean up the mess of Koenig once it had already hit the fan. I mean, it was a weird call. So Gunnar, like I said, maybe there's context I'm missing or something I'm not seeing because I wasn't watching the game. But what did you see there? And other than that, anything else stand out in this game? I mean, like I said, it seems like the offense struggled again with just Gary kind of providing one big swing, and that was it.
Yeah. Well, I'll start out with saying I'm mad at you and Jack for even putting this seed into my brain because you guys are absolutely right about this stuff when it comes to bullpen management. I'm not smart enough to think about it like that. You guys have now, every time something like this happens, I think about it. And I was honestly thinking about it right when he came in, but my first thought was like, okay, I'm happy, I guess. Like we used a guy who we just brought out from AAA and maybe we're trying to get something out of him. Like I said, like you said too, I like him. If you like him, I certainly like him because you're smarter than me. But I thought it was fine at first, but like you said, if you're going to use Hobie anyways and everyone's ready to go, how is he not the first option there? And you got six solid innings out of Bryce Wilson, which he was struggling to get through that sixth inning. I know you didn't watch it, but cruising through five innings and then that sixth inning, to even get out of there alive, he was really losing command there. With no runs. That was super, super impressive to see, but there was no chance he was coming out for a seventh inning. Um, and you had a 2-0 lead. Yeah, I would have liked to see Hobie there, but I mean, I guess 2020 vision, if he, like you said, we like him. So maybe it's a one time where you maybe were trying to escape using Hobie, but that also doesn't make sense because then why would you use him to clean up the mess too? So, yeah, confusing move, I guess, for me too. And then, I mean, a lot of stuff happened that inning, honestly, with I think we had like a Willie Adames bobble that inning. Blake Perkins had one slide under his glove, and then that's just when the mess sort of happened after that. So a couple of things that don't normally happen with us as far as defense goes, combined with maybe a pitcher who's not doing his best too. So like I said, maybe it's a one-off situation where he tried to get away with using somebody that we don't necessarily always would use in those situations, and then kind of bit him in the butt there. But yeah, I mean, this one was frustrating in some senses because, like I said, with the Cubs series, I'm still not concerned even after this game, but you just could not get any sort of offense going. It's good to see Gary getting going too. I mean, I'm happy with him being able to now hit some home runs and get us some offense because that's going to be big too in the long run. But yeah, I mean, besides that, we got to find a way, I guess, to scratch off more runs. But like I said, this is still very small sample size, even with this game. You just need more than two runs too. So I don't know if I can necessarily blame it all on Koenig there, but just disappointing, I guess.
Yeah, definitely seems like a game the Brewers should have won, could have won. Um, I said it's I always hate missing games completely. Even worse when I have to immediately talk about them
Well,
afterwards. But
give us your Bryce Wilson thoughts because I know I did have this stat ready to go today. They put this before even his start, but he's made a couple starts now. I know his first one was really short, but or a couple of them really were short, I guess. But he had three starts before this one. 14 innings pitched, 1.93 ERA, 11 strikeouts, and then that's not even considering what he did tonight. Like I said, the sixth inning probably ruined his stats a little bit. I think he maybe only had one walk going into that last inning, and then he had two going into that one. But um, do you see him going forward as a starter, even if we're all healthy? And maybe that's not the best way to put it because we're not always going to all be healthy. But in a realistic, we're semi-healthy, and he's doing pretty decent. Would you still like to see him be a starter, or do you want to see him go
I,
back into that role?
pretty hard to argue against keeping him a starter right now. I mean, he has the look of a starter. He has enough pitches to be a starter. Obviously, at one point he was a pretty big prospect as a starting pitcher. Um, and he's been able to kind of seamlessly fit into the workload that a starter has to have. And I don't know, man, he was the unsung hero last year, but if he's able to actually stick in the rotation this year and be helpful, I mean, I don't think you can be an unsung hero at that point. I think everyone's going to be singing his praises at that point, but he's been fantastic. Again, super helpful to have somebody who can bounce between these roles like this. And yeah, if he's getting results even remotely close to what he's doing right now, I think you have to keep him a starter. I don't see enough depth otherwise to avoid that. So no, he's been really good, and it's been huge for the Brewers. But I guess to wrap up, a little preview of the next two games. We got Colin Ray against Seth Lugo in game two. Lugo's somebody that I was kind of hoping the Brewers would go out and sign as rotation depth. He's been really good for the Royals so far. Oddly, I know his strikeouts are way down, but everything else is better. So that's a little interesting. And then in game three, we've got Joe Ross against Brady Singer, who Singer seems to have finally figured things out after once being a really big prospect. He kind of started falling off some of the prospect hype and seems to be, I mean, the Royals have been really good this year. So them, they figured out a lot of the starting pitching and it's going a long way for them right now. But I don't know if there's anything that really stands out there other than that if Colin Ray is starting a game, you're probably going to have a chance to win it. So that's a good thing. And we'll get to see if Joe Ross can continue what he had brought to that Cubs series, see if he's able to kind of carry that over and be a little bit more than he had been recently, where, like I said, prior to that Cubs start, it had been a bit of a rough stretch. So let's hope he can continue the good times in game three. But yeah, we got a couple questions we want to talk about here. So Gunnar, I'll start with you on this because I know you are a big fan, but what does Tyler Black's arrival kind of look like for the long term with this team? I mean, short term and long term, we can look at it. How do you see him impacting this team now and in the future?
Yeah, I was a little surprised, I guess, to see him up this early. Obviously, I'm very excited that he was, but and I know he was hitting the ball pretty well. Um, maybe stats wise, thought I saw Jack maybe had a couple of articles that concerned me a little bit because his batted ball data or something didn't match up with maybe his stats. And I know the Brewers are pretty smart with that stuff, so I thought, well, maybe we'll get another month or something, and then maybe because our offense is falling apart a little bit, maybe we're like, well, we can give us a little more punch here with Tyler Black and try to strike some lightning. But I think Murph said that he's going to be strictly first base DH, which is what we expected. I guess I'm more curious how when Yelich comes back, how this all looks. Um, because now when you add Yelich back, we have a question later of what that looks like too. But he's obviously strictly a lefty bat. Does that mean Jake Bauers goes too if Oliver Dunn's gone? Um, because if he's only playing first base and DH, obviously Reese is going to get a good amount of at bats, and then William or Gary is going to get at bats. So I think he's going to have a pretty big impact. But I was shocked to see him batting third and top of the middle of the order, top of the lineup, playing right away, playing all the time. And he started out good. Obviously, he fell off a lot in this over this weekend, but I think he's only got like one walk so far. That's something I was excited to see out of him. with his eye. I know he even had a bigger situation in the Cubs series where he struck out looking and it was actually a ball. That now he's like my Ryan Braun where I'm not gonna remember all that little stuff and it's gonna bother me because I want him to do well. But no, I'm excited that he's up. Like I said though, once everyone's healthy, I wonder how much he's gonna play. Um, how again, I guess it's gonna be performance based. Who goes down in that scenario? Jake Bauers is doing a little bit better now. He's starting to be better, honestly, over the last month or so. If you probably take those stats, it probably looks better too. But yeah, I mean, how do you see him fitting in with a currently fully healthy team once Yelich comes back? Maybe do you think Jake Bauers gets the boot then because if he's strictly first base and DH, kind of like Bauers is doing? I think Murph also said that Bauers would play some outfield, which
Yeah,
again, if Yelich comes back, I don't know where the room is for that, but do you see room for everybody here, or does somebody have to go?
I think I mean, literally somebody does have to go. They're gonna have to make a roster move of some sort, but I expect Black to stick around. I don't think they bring him up just for a
Hmm.
week or two while Yelich is getting close to coming back, add him to the 40 man, get his whole clock started just to send him back down. I think it probably does come down to Dunn or Bowers. That would also depend on whether they actually believe Freelick can play third base, I think, in terms of sending Dunn down. Um, we're going to talk about Ortiz in a second here, but I don't know that they need to worry that much about that either way. But Bowers could be on the way out. I do think they're trying to give the bat time. Um, he already has played a little outfield since Black came up. I find it very interesting because I genuinely believe Tyler Black would be a good defensive outfielder, whereas I think he's a terrible infielder. And Jake Bowers is a fantastic first baseman and a bad defensive outfielder. So I don't really understand why they're going the direction they're going in terms of one of them playing first and one of them playing outfield. I would flip the spots that they are in, but it's not a huge deal either way, I guess. I genuinely think Black might be a long-term outfielder in the end. So it's weird to me that they're forcing Bowers into a spot he's less comfortable in. I think the bat's going to play. I really like the bat for Black. I think he's going to hit. I think he's going to walk. He's got more power. It's a similar profile to Freelick, but he's got more juice in the bat and he's got a little bit more patience at the plate. Like he will walk more than Freelick does, especially at the big league level. Um, you talked about the pitch that was called a strike against him outside curveball. I know exactly what you're talking about. He in AAA, he would not have struck out on that pitch because he would have just tapped
Hmm.
his helmet, and he would have got it overturned because it was clearly a ball. I actually think there's an element of the system being used in AAA that's affecting players when they get up to the majors because one, a lot of people think the ABS system is smaller than the actual strike zone at AAA, so they're dealing with a strike zone that's a bit smaller than the real strike zone, and they don't have the ability to actually challenge close calls that they don't like they do in AAA. So I could see a bit of an adjustment for him getting used to the zone now and trying to figure that out at this level. But he's going to walk. He's going to take walks. He's going to put the ball in play quite a bit, and he's going to do it with some pop I would say gap to gap and with pull power over the fence. So I'm excited to see him. I think when Yelich comes back, we'll answer that one now. I think the odd man out should be Oliver Dunn. I think he needs time in Nashville right now, and we could touch on we're going to touch on all these questions we got written down because Joey Ortiz should be playing every day at third base, and there's really no reason not to be. It's small sample, but his splits are he's been fantastic against right-handed pitching. He's been good against left-handed pitching. He's just been a good hitter so far. He's not chasing, he's not whiffing. The power, he's shown it in little spurts, especially with the homer in that Yankees game when he had the homer and the walk-off single, and those were both like 108 miles per hour or harder, I believe. He has shown a good ability. I mean, I guess to touch on this quickly, I saw he was pulled for defense in today's game. I don't understand that at all, but it sounds like it cost him an at bat in this game too, where it would have been nice to have him up. So that's interesting to me. I don't know what it is about him, why Murph doesn't seem to trust him. It's almost like he came into the season and Ollie was his guy, Oliver Dunn was his guy, and he just decided I'm gonna keep giving him chances. But Ortiz deserves to play every day, and Dunn could use some more seasoning at AAA, and that's not a problem. He'd barely played above double A. He had like 19 at bats above double A in his career. Like it's fine. Just put him in triple A for a little bit. Let him get used to the level. Let him kind of he's only 26. Like let him have some time to figure things out at triple A. But to keep throwing him in the lineup right now feels a little unfair to Dunn. I mean, Bowers makes plenty of sense to get DFA'd too, but I think with the amount that they gave up for him and the fact that he is their only good defensive first baseman on the roster still, I'm not sure he's at the end of his rope yet. I think he's still got a little bit of time to go. So, Gunnar, you want to touch on any of those ones that we just went through here? But we talked about a lot of stuff that we were supposed to get here.
Yeah, with I would assume Dunn is the odd man out. Um, I do have a quote from Pat Murphy, which maybe will make you giggle a little bit, but um, they talked about pretty much this exact question of is it time for Ortiz to be like an everyday guy now playing against righties um, more normally? And he said Ortiz, I consider him a starter, which I guess, yeah, technically. He says I've given Dunn this opportunity here because I want to find out more about him. It seemed to be turning the other way, and maybe he needs more seasoning. And he's stepped up both offensively, defensively, and base running, which, yeah, some of those are true. And I guess technically Ortiz has had opportunities. Like it's not like he's playing not a lot. He's gotten his opportunities, but um, like you said, I think it's just time that Ortiz has won the job. Um, and I like Oliver Dunn too, like you said. He hits the ball hard, harder than Ortiz, honestly, at this point, this average wise, but doesn't chase a ton either, but he whiffs, which is just it's such a weird stat to me. I know you could break that down more specifically. I mean, I know he chases the high fastball a lot, which is maybe a little Keston here like in that sense, but he also chased, but um it's just weird that he's got that one little thing about him that really seems to hold him back so much. But like you said, um, that could be a really easy thing to fix in AAA, and he just needs um, that seasoning as Pat Murphy used. But um, I love Joey Ortiz, I really do. Um, and what's impressed me most, I think the one thing I said about him when we traded for him was, I don't know, like I was like maybe he's not going to walk as much, and maybe that's something that we're going to need more. He's going to be higher in average on this team. He's not going to chase or whiff like normally what we're used to, but or strike out really. But yeah, maybe he won't walk as much. And then now he's leads all rookies in on base percentage. I'm pretty sure at least going into this game. And I know he had I've just been really impressed with him. And yeah, the defense speaks for itself too. And one of those situations where I think he's earned the right now to um, play himself out of the spot, I guess. And maybe it's been easier for him because he hasn't been the everyday guy like Oliver Dunn, where um, this is more of a baseball thing. I know you maybe will understand it's hard to explain, but I feel like if maybe Joey Ortiz was, if you flip their situations around, who knows, maybe Joey Ortiz is the one that finds out reality a little bit, and now they've figured him out, and now he's couldn't make the adjustment fast enough, and then Oliver Dunn's the one who's been put in better situations, and then he's off to a better start. I don't know, but like I said, I think Joey's just earned the spot more than he has, unfortunately. And with the Yelich part of it, I just think it makes the decision so easy. And Sal playing third base, he won't have to play it that much if Joey's playing third base every day too. It's just going to be more of a necessary thing if that happens.
Yep.
But that option's there to cover that spot for him. So we're covered in all spots. So I think it's just very obvious that it will be Yelich for Oliver Dunn.
Yeah. And I mean, Dunn has been an incredible defender,
Hmm.
and he's one of the fastest players in baseball, which you would never guess looking at him, but he is. He flies. Um, he does a lot of things well. I think Oliver Dunn's going to be a good major league player. The whiff rate is just insane right now, and you just can't be a good hitter whiffing as much as he is, especially if he's hitting the ball hard, but for the most part, it's on the ground. So if you're not elevating the hard contact, like it's not going to be very you're not going to be a good hitter right now. Give him some time, give him some seasoning in AAA. I think at one point he very well could be, but I think it's Ortiz time every day for sure. Um, it's like you said, the walk rate has been the most surprising thing for me too. I was not expecting that at all, but it seems legitimate too when you watch him. Like
Hmm.
he's not just getting four pitches nowhere near the zone. Like he seems to have a pretty good understanding of the strike zone, and if he can combine what we saw at AAA, which was a lot of hard contact. He had really good like hard contact in terms of like exit velos and stuff. He just didn't elevate them enough. If he can combine that with the new and improved eye at the plate, like it's gonna be a really solid bat in the lineup. And the defense has been a little bit worse than I expected it to, just because he's had some throwing issues at third base, but he's still a good defender. He's still a very, you can see the hands are just ridiculous. The jumps off the bat are probably more average than great, but he's good. He's a good player, and I expect him to do a lot of good things for this team this year. And it's just weird to me that I actually get exactly what you're saying with that, because I am convinced that the reason Keston Hiura's numbers were as solid as they were a few years ago is because
Yep.
the Brewers did keep him in good positions for him to succeed for the most part. I know people didn't like him facing lefties, but guess what, people? You have to run out 9 hitters against lefties every game. And the Brewers did not have 9 hitters who could hit lefties on that team. So eventually somebody has to settle into that role, even though they're not hitting them. It's there's a lot of there's a lot of good in Joey Ortiz's game, and he just looks more ready for it right now than Dunn does, and that's a good thing for Ortiz, but it doesn't mean anything about Dunn long term at all. Um, I guess the other young player that we should probably talk about a little bit is Robert Gasser. I think there's a pretty good chance we see his debut this week. He, with Freddie's suspension, the Brewers are going to need an extra starter. It lines up with Gasser's last start because Gasser started on Friday or on Sunday, the same day as Freddie. So I think there's a pretty good chance we see Gasser make his debut at some point this week. Obviously in line with his last start, I would imagine. So I don't know if that's Friday, probably Friday or Saturday, but he, in terms of what I think we're going to see from him, I think you're just going to see a really solid starting pitcher. I don't think he's going to dominate at this level. I don't think he's going to, I don't think, I wouldn't expect much of a, like that big of an adjustment period for him though either. I think he'll be ready to pitch when he gets to the majors here. He's got pretty good command. He's got 5 pitches. All of them are very playable at this level. I would say the sinker is the one pitch I'm a little bit weary of. But yeah, I mean, I'm ready to see his debut. I really think it's going to go pretty well for him, and that he's going to be part of the starting rotation for the majority of the rest of the season, whether that's by means of injury or just outperforming people. I will say Bryce Wilson's emergence as a starter probably throws a little bit of a wrench in my idea that he actually just sticks in the rotation being Gasser, but either way, the Brewers are just lacking starter depth, so I think they'll find a way to keep him in if he's performing and he looks like he's ready to be here. And then I guess the only other person that we didn't touch on and got moved around a little bit and of note is Abner Uribe. I mean, Gunnar touched on the fact that he has to serve a suspension down in AAA, which I was going to mention. Pretty funny that he got in a brawl the last day before he got called up to the majors, and then he got in a brawl the last day before he got sent down to AAA. So he's got dueling suspensions he has to deal with here. But I don't know that it affects the bullpen much because honestly, he has not been pitching very well this year. I think they're going to be just fine. The interesting thing to me is what Gunnar touched on earlier, which is that when he gets called up, he has to serve his suspension, and the Brewers do not get to use that roster spot while he is serving the suspension. So it's going to be hard to find a way to call him up. I It almost makes me think that unless he's just absolutely dominating AAA, the Brewers might not see him till September when they have 2 extra roster spots and can just afford to not have one for 5, 6 days, whatever it is. It's going to be hard to find a way to fit him back into the pen because the Brewers are using their entire staff every week. Like, when is it going to make sense to be down a pitcher? I really don't know. I don't see a good time for it. The only way I could see it happening is if you have like 2 off days in a span of a week, and you think you could either one skip a start and send somebody down from the rotation and just have an extra reliever. Really, you wouldn't have any extra reliever because Uribe would be suspended, but or 2, you have that type of stretch where the pen guys just are able to stay rested even though they're down one. So I didn't look at the schedule. I'm not sure if that pops up at any point, but I could also see maybe like the last 3 days before the All-Star break and the 3 days after or something, just to give them that rest built in. Um, but yeah, it's going to be interesting. I really don't know how that's going to work, and I wouldn't want to be the Brewers trying to figure that out, especially with Uribe's mental state and all the stuff that goes on there. Like I'm sure he's thinking about all this stuff, which isn't great either. But Gunnar, it looks like you have something you'd like to finish this episode on. So now that we're done with our Brewers talk, how are we going to wrap this one up?
Well, normally, if you're a fan or part of the club here at the Cream City Club, you know how we end our shows with a random brewer, a random buck, depending on what the episode is. But if you're alive or if you're not under a rock, you know what's going on right now in the world with Drake and Kendrick Lamar beefing right now. So um, just instead of doing our random brewers, we're gonna pick a side here of Drake or Kendrick. Um, Take it any which way you want based on the battle, based on which one you like more. But if you do know me, I am a big Drake fan, so I am going to go with Drake here. But battle specifically, I can see how um, people would say Kendrick is winning, and I would be okay with people saying that. I'm not normally I would defend him pretty well, but I understand it this time around. I do think though, however, it feels like it's a little bit of I was trying to think of what to compare it to since it's a sports podcast, but like sort of like 2010s LeBron almost, where everyone seems to respect Drake, but everyone also wants to see him fail extremely badly. So he finally got a formidable opponent with Kendrick Lamar. Some people think he's better than him. That's totally fine. He's in that bracket of stars as far as artists goes. So I think it's a combination of the Kendrick Lamar fans who really want Kendrick to win, plus the guys who really want to see Drake lose. And that's just a very, very hard battle to win if you're Drake. But I've liked the songs has dropped so far too. So I don't know. I'm trying to be as fair about it as possible. But like I said, I more than any other beef he's had, I understand this one. I'm just glad that they're both giving us a moment like this and they're both rapping and no one's shying away from the moment like the third wing there with J. Cole. I didn't appreciate when he just dropped out of it. But Spencer, what side are you on in this beef?
I mean, listen, J. Cole seems to be the smartest one out of all.
True. Yeah, now it makes sense.
It makes plenty of sense. Yeah, I gotta go with K Dot. I'm going Kendrick on this one. I do think he's done better in the overall battle. Um, I would give Drake the nod overall for sure, but I am a big Kendrick guy. I've always enjoyed Kendrick. I have not enjoyed recent Kendrick, and I feel like Drake brought out the Kendrick that I enjoy, which is what he's been giving us with these. So, shout out Drake for that for sure, because this is the Kendrick that I always liked as, I guess I can't say I was a kid. I was in high school and stuff, but um, growing up, this is the Kendrick that I enjoyed listening to, and this has been fun. It's been great to have. I mean, we've basically gotten an album of good songs from the two of them just going
Mhm.
back and forth. So if they want to keep going, I mean, just keep going at it. I would love it. It'd be great. It sounds like Drake is recently, it sounded like in his last one that he was kind of like, all right, I'm done. Like you can keep saying what you want, but
It's
I'm
gone
done.
too far at this point.
Um, but yeah, I mean, it's been fun. We had a lot of beef recently in the world of rap, and it's been
Yeah.
a while since we had anything like this. So it's been enjoyable. I'm sure people who don't know me probably don't think that I am a big fan of rap, but it is absolutely my go-to for music.
Mhm.
I love rap. So
I saw somebody say we can end on this part, but how there's not like really rappers like this anymore too, and this literally might be the last time we see anything like this. And it's weird to think that like we had the biggest moment ever, and this might be the last time we get a rap battle like this, pretty much ever, unless obviously young guys come up and raps revitalized now. But yeah, I mean, I guess in that sense, really embrace this moment because it might not ever happen again.
yeah, I feel like an old person already. I always thought it was weird how my dad was like, this new music sucks. And now I'm like, wow, this new music sucks. I'm only finding myself listening to like, other than these newest songs going at each other. Like, I listen to old rap more than anything. I shouldn't say old. I do listen to old rap actually, a lot of 90s stuff, but I listen to mostly like early 2010s or mid 2010s or late 2000s rap more than anything else, and this is more in that style, it feels like. So I'm enjoying it, and yeah, hopefully it's not the last time we get it. Hopefully some people start stepping up, and including the two guys beefing. I would like for both of them to be better with their new music. So yeah, I've got takes on music. We could have a different podcast for music, I think, but
I've thought
uh
about it.
I don't have time for more podcasts actually,
I
so
know,
I'm
I
gonna
know.
pass on it now. But yeah, that's my random brewer is Kendrick Lamar. Um
Mine's Oliver Drake. If you didn't get the,
I was gonna use Kendrick Lamar Sparks. There's a
we could
Lamar
have did that
Sparks.
actually. Yeah, we literally could have did that. We could have come up with a
Oh,
name like that instead of that. That's
we
stupid.
should have.
Whatever.
Lamar Sparks is a double A outfielder for the Brewers right now with a cannon of an arm and no hit ability. So
Yeah,
yeah. And Lorenzo Cain's middle name is Lamar, I'm pretty sure. Don't ask me why I know that, but I'm almost certain it is. Um,
that's unfortunate.
yeah, it is. Lorenzo Kendrick Lamar Cain. Okay. We're done with this now, and we're almost out of time on our Zoom that we use here. So we'll wrap it up with a please like and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on. Remember to follow us on Twitter at the Cream City Pod. And please feel free to leave feedback for us on how we can get better. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next time.
See ya.